Well, good evening. Welcome everyone here. It's interesting how, I guess we say how God works. When Bert got up and read that, he said he wasn't going to expound on the list of things there he read, but one of them is what I want to talk about tonight. And I actually didn't even have this reference down through my notes at all, so something similar to it, but tonight I decided I want to talk on our words. And as I started, then I wasn't sure why I decided that, but I need it, so I guess if you don't, well then I want a lot of input so we can all help each other say the things that we're supposed to say. So, is our words, what we say, is it important?
Well, of course, the Bible says, let your yea be yea, your nay nay.
That's right. Is that where our words stop, or? What do our words tell about us? I'm not looking for a bunch of fancy answers, just, make it practical, whatever, but, like, at least when I talk to somebody, pretty soon how they talk, their language, or just even the way they are expressing, pretty quick you draw a conclusion about this person. Anyhow, go ahead.
It shows some of what's inside.
That's exactly right. Which we're going to touch on that. But yeah, what's in will come out. So last week I was in conversation with a man, and he asked me, and this is not what we're not going to just talk about bad language or whatever, but he asked me, he said, so do Mennonites swear? So what would you have told him?
No, not you.
Yeah. I said, well, we're not perfect. Yeah, we're not supposed to, or it's more important about being a Christian and saying the right things than it is about the Mennonite swearing. We're not, yeah. Anyhow, so he was just, he had asked us some other questions, but that was one of the things he was wondering. So anyhow, yes, it's very important. The words we speak, things we say, and the Bible actually has a lot of things to say on that, and also it's pretty blunt and straightforward with it. So I want to just look into it a little bit. Let's start with James 3, which you probably expected. I'm talking about the tongue a little bit here. Think about it. Words are used for everything in every situation, good or bad. Like I said, words that are spoken can mean different things just by the tone, or you will respond differently just by the tones they were said. Words can build up, words can tear down, words can make you grow spiritually. Somebody giving you encouragement, or a message Sunday morning, or whatever it may be. Words like bad jokes, swearing, all that can that'll tear you down. Words, good news, bad news, whatever the news is. Words make friendships, they break friendships. They make business dealings, they break business dealings. Make promises, break promises. They really, our life revolves around words. Before we get started, which I had school devotions this morning and I asked this same question, so I guess the ones that know the answer just don't say, but how many words does a person speak on average in a day? Does anybody want to guess? Well, I figured that would come up. My research said, I can't remember the numbers, so I figured, well, I'm not going to go there. They just gave an average. The women were higher than the men, but
Around 3,000.
say 3. Okay. Anyone else want to guess?
Around 10,000.
It's closer.
22,000.
No.
30,000.
No. 7,000. An average person. I think it said the one person I think got up to as high as 46,000. I don't know if that was a man or a lady, so I don't know, but how that was a lot of talking in one day's time. So my point is so if we say that many words in one day, some of it we might not even be mindful what we're saying, or we just respond, we make phone calls, we talk, whatever. But I think it's important, and we can make a big difference if we're saying that many words in one day. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it upbuilding? What are those words? Let's read here on the tongue. Let's go James 3. Let's start with verse 3. Behold, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us and turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeneth. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of the things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith we bless God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. So here we see this tongue, that we say all these words, and that our life revolves around, is a little member. They're about 3 to 4 inches long. And it's really impressive how something so small cannot be tamed. When we read here how about the ships and the horses, but yet the tongue, we ourselves cannot tame it. In verse 6 there, it says the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature. What does that look like to you? Or what do you think when you read that verse? What is a world of iniquity? Or how, yeah, well, let's go with that one first.
Well, if it's a world of iniquity, obviously it has a large potential. And there it be used for ill rather than for good.
Exactly right. says it defileth the whole body. So our tongue can make a difference in our whole life. We'll touch on that a little later, maybe. If you think about it, maybe some of you have experiences, where you said something. I'm sure we all had experiences that we said something which later we didn't say it, or we could take them back. Maybe some of us had experiences that it caused conflict because of what we said, or maybe you ever heard what somebody said about you, and you had a hardship through that all. But it's kind of hard to explain how, sometimes something took years of trust or whatever to establish, how fast that can be broken just with what you said, just from your tongue. It's happened so quick, and I think that's why he's talking, comparing it to a fire. I had to think about, like a Wild West fire or whatever. A lot of times those start with just a little fire, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've been out there, where the fire had went through maybe a couple of years, and you can still see the ruins of it. And I just had to think about it. It can be so true about words that were spoken that shouldn't have been spoken, how it can totally destroy, and it's going to take a long time to build that trust or whatever it might be back up. And sometimes we even see the smoke from here, from out west. It all depends how bad the situation was. But I thought the fire was definitely a very good comparison there. Now, verse 8, it says, the tongue is an unruly evil. So what's an unruly evil? Or what does unruly mean? Does anyone know? Or what do you think of when you think of that phrase? Exactly right. Exactly right.
Restless.
Yep. So, what do you think? What picture do you get in your mind, or what do you think of when you think of that kind of a tongue, an out of control tongue or a restless tongue? What comes to mind?
Somebody that needs a savior.
Exactly right.
I'm going to blank. There's too many people who use a four-letter word, maybe not in every sentence, but it comes, and the longer it goes, it seems the worse it gets.
Mm-hmm.
If we aren't careful, you're around that kind of thing, you have a tendency to have it part of your vocabulary.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. So then what do we do about that?
Get disgusted.
Does that fix it? No, we can't always avoid it.
You can't always avoid it. You can try or take positive steps to not dwell.
Mm-hmm.
You can only think of it so many times before it will come out.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, you have to, myself, of course, better keep my mind full.
One thing that I find interesting for myself is, like, the same man that asked me that question about us swearing, he's like, I forget how he worded it, but he felt like, he said, well, I don't want to offend you by me swearing, like when I come here to deliver, because he said, that's our second language here. I said, it's not about me. No, I don't like to hear all that, but at the end of the day, it's not about me, about your language. It's your accountable to God, not me. But yeah, it's just, so I'm saying the world, somehow you think sometimes maybe they just say without thinking, but I really think they know, sometimes anyhow, they know what they're saying, because I had never talked to him about his language, and he's the one that brought it up. So it was just very interesting to me is they have a standard whether they want to admit it or not. I mean, he went on to say that he tries to leave that at work because his children go to a Catholic school and he don't want them saying that there. But anyhow, it needs to be a way deeper reason that for our language. But I thought it was just very interesting how they do have a standard. And that's why it's important for us that profess to be something more, that we are not caught using words like that.
So how do you approach a person so you don't get the attitude for them that holier than thou? In other words, are you using that kind of language? How do you approach that person and quit using it? Or should we say anything to them?
In our line of work, I have seen this happen over and over. Delivered concrete truck drivers. They come out and they're foul mouths. And by the time they leave, they stop. I've seen that happen so many times, and I never have ever told any of them to stop it. Mm-hmm. But if we don't reply, they soon realize that, maybe I better watch what I say here. Mm-hmm. I was reminded that one of the men, I guess he technically would be my boss. He doesn't swear when he talks to me, and I just kind of took it for granted that he's not one that swears. Well, then one day I overheard him on the phone talking to one of his friends. I realized he does swear a lot. Mm-hmm. It just depends who he's talking to. Mm-hmm. But I've never told anyone to stop. Mm-hmm.
I do. What do they see in us that they know that? I think it's very important. I just
think if we don't reply with their words, mm-hmm. Don't use them yourself. But it's the only thing I can figure out. They sense something.
Mm-hmm. I know sometimes you hear maybe a couple of men talking and it's good conversation, and then one starts, and then almost they get a competition going on. So you might have something to that, just not coming back. I had an experience a couple of years ago, and it's to my shame, but I can't remember what the word was, but it's where I unloaded and good friends with a couple of the guys there, and we're in conversation, and I almost said something. I can't remember what it was. And the other guy looked at the other one, and he said, "Hey, did you hear that? He just about said," and that really went home. It was like, I never said anything to them about the way they were talking. It's just, they hold us to a standard whether we know it or not. And that's kind of what got me is like, how important is this, as we rub shoulders with the world. All right, now thing that really, I guess, made my mind go down this subject or whatever was the last couple of verses I read, and that is, therefore we bless God, even the Father, therefore we curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessings and cursing. And so, do we have that problem? Some of these men we're talking about, I don't know how many blessings they, I'd never really heard them bless God, but here we are professing to be a child of God, and are we always free of perfect speech? And we're not perfect. We're not going to have perfect speech, but what all's coming out of us? And maybe it's just my problem. I want to turn to Matthew 12. Verse 33 through 37. Either make the tree good and his fruits good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruit. O generation of vipers, how can you be evil, speaking good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of good measure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you that every idle word that man men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. This is Jesus' words here. And is it important what we're saying? It says either we're going to be justified or we will be condemned. So it's serious. And like David had mentioned earlier, what's in our tongue is controlled by what's inside of us. I have another reference here. I think it's Matthew 15, where it says, verse 10. And he called the multitude and said unto them, Hear and understand, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out the mouth, this defileth a man. And then verse 17. Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, idolatries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands defileth not a man. So, when we hear people talking like that, it's because it's what's inside. And I have a few. Okay, let's verse 36, chapter 12. That every idle word shall man speak. What's idle words? Or what? Yeah, what does that term? What's another? What's that? Yeah. So what all categories?
Could it be extra adjectives?
That would be one of them. Yep. I'm not trying to figure out what's the right Mennonite swear word to use and not to use. I want to talk about everybody, just them personally. Look at themselves where they're at, I guess, and see how we're doing. But yeah, what else could that be? There's one that would fit the lady side a little better than maybe what we have been talking about.
Gossip.
Yeah,
Gossip.
that's right. I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just saying that men struggle to use bad language more than ladies, I think. Maybe not. What would be some more?
I guess you could say silly jokes or jokes that are maybe a little shady.
Mm-hmm.
Or just jokes to make people laugh, not the best, or
Yep.
make light of people.
Exactly. Yep. That was one of them I have down. And I'm sure there's a lot of them. I have a couple here. I just want to look at a little bit what the Bible says about them. I have lying down also. So Bert said about extra adjectives or whatever. I just have down swearing. The definition is word or phrase considered blasphemous, obscene, vulgar, or offensive. So that's I don't know what all words, makes you think for yourself, what all words are that come under that category, or check yourself, see where you're at. Also, Trent had said shady jokes or vulgar jokes. Yeah, Ephesians, I can just turn to that. Ephesians 4, verse 29 has something to tell us about that. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Also in chapter 5, verse 3 through 5, but fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becometh saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this you know that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. So how serious is it? What does jesting mean?
Would that be like making fun of someone?
Could be. That's not exactly what I found, but it'd fall in that category. I mean,
Good question then.
yeah.
Vulgar joking.
Yeah. Yep. Crude jokes. One thing I noticed is verse 4 is where it's talking about it. Did you notice everything else around it? Look what it's categorized with. Is that just chance, or is there something to that? Fornication and uncleanness and whoremongers and idolaters. I think once we start down that path, there's probably no convenient place to stop.
So I'm wondering if he gave the remedy there at the end of that verse. He gives the remedy. It says, but rather giving of thanks. When you use the same tongue to do that, we're probably not going to be doing the previous, so there's the remedy for our own personal mindset.
Exactly right.
We're tempted to do either or there, or impulsive words. It says, but rather giving of thanks. That's why we're giving them.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that's part of the answer as far as how to relate to people who are using filthy language. Often it is used in anger, complaining, or even here as it says, coarse jesting and things like that. Thankfulness is far from their minds at such times. So by contrast, we are thankful. So we can at least realize we're different. Perhaps wonder why.
That's a good point.
And also, it reminds me of Philippians 4:8, which Brother already alluded to, Brother Delbert, talking to me. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. And the time to meditate on it is not when you're in a conversation with the person using filthy language.
That's a very good point.
I should say the time to start meditating on it is not then.
Yeah.
If you've been meditating on it, it helps.
That's right. And if it's in there, maybe that comes out instead.
Yes. Meditation I've heard compared to, or heard described as muttering to yourself, kind of a talking to yourself, reminding yourself of it throughout the day. And I've also heard it described as many of us are experts at meditation. We just don't realize it because we use those capabilities in a different direction for worry.
Good point. Good point. I had to wonder if, Jesus got pretty emphatic about, there we read in Matthew about the, number one, we're going to be judged by what we say. But, about, okay, God doesn't like lukewarmness because you're cold nor hot. Do you think a good tongue, it's supposed to be a good tongue, saying bad things causes him the same grief? Us as children of God, children of Him, and we're using our tongue in the wrong way. I said to wonder if that makes him, cause him more grief than would be someone that you don't expect anything better out of. But just a thought I had. A little bit about gossip. See, 1 Timothy 5:13 alludes to it. It talks about and withal they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, not only idle, but tattlers also and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not. And then also in 2 Thessalonians 3:11, for we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Now, I don't know if you thought about it or not, but in both of those verses, both places, they're not doing anything. Is there any connection to that in gossip? Here it says, working not at all, and the other one said, they learn to be idle. Then it says, not only idle, and then it goes on. And it just I had to think about it. Is that just wording, or is there something to that?
Makes good sense to me.
It's kind of what I thought. Sitting around with nothing better to do. Does anyone know what the definition of gossip is? Casual or unconstrained conversations or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed to be true. I'd say I'm definitely guilty of saying gossip. That's usually the juiciest news to tell.
Just thinking about the verse that you were referring to in James, there with lest we God and we curse men. Could gossip be cursing men? I read an article one time, and it was a very interesting article. The scenario was a group of people after church waiting on lunch, and what the conversation was, and then time for lunch. Bow our heads and pray. Have you ever been, and since that article I have tried to observe how the conversation is before we bless God for the food.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times when it was almost uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Saying you're better off just...
I think it gets closer home than what we...
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. Been better off just eating and not
we
praying.
discuss somebody up and down, in and out, and then it's time to pray.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even feel right.
And then you get done, and then you keep continuing, huh?
Maybe the one that has the floor should lead in prayer.
Good idea. But yeah, I definitely think it's definitely a part of cursing then. What about lying? Does anyone here tell a lie?
Wouldn't gossip be lying?
Because if what you're saying, you don't know it's totally true yet, then, I mean, if it does turn out to be true, that's one thing, but if it's
How many
not
times-
true, then it is a lie, I think. And I think men do struggle. I struggle with probably too much gossiping. Something I can work on. But
I like that point. If it ends up not being true, then, well,
I think God can be true. And the path is not uphill. And along with that, details are almost always gospel. Not always, but they tend to fall in that category. Because if you really have a concern for something and you're sharing it, details won't help.
yeah,
They usually hinder.
that's exactly right. Your story kind of stops there, or the interest stops after the details stop. Is there any such thing as white lies or half-truths?
If it's only half true, maybe you should take it on as a whole. In numbers, if it's half, you carry it on to the next whole point. So it might be a whole untruth.
I think it'd be a good idea.
If it's only half true, you better not say it.
Yeah, exactly right. Proverbs 19, verse 5 says, "A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape." And then verse 9, pretty much the same thing. "A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish." So it is a serious matter, telling the truth. And I don't think that we struggle just to flat out look someone in the face and tell a lie. But I think sometimes it comes a little closer home to maybe not a half-truth, or maybe it is a half-truth, or have someone thinking in a way that we want them to be thinking, but it's really not that way. Jesus said in John 8, Why do ye not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my word. Ye are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, ye believe me not. He's talking to the Pharisees there. But there we see where lying comes from. I don't think we want to have any part in that. So, is there a way to be victorious with our tongue? Some of it came up already, but taming our tongue won't make our heart right, or make our heart clean or pure. It won't keep it from getting bitter or whatever is causing us to say and do things that we shouldn't. but getting our heart right. If our heart is right, then what comes out of our mouth will be right. And I was gonna, thanks David for reading it, but Philippians 4:8 there. Think about each one of those words and what it's actually saying. And if we build on that and fill our minds and our hearts up with that, that's what's going to be in there when we go to speak or get ourselves in a pinch or whatever. I don't know. I was going to ask this earlier, I guess, but will you accidentally say something bad if it's not in you? Just a question. I'd like to close with James. Back to the chapter we came from, the verse 2. I really like that. It says, "For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body." So, offend there means to stumble. So many things we stumble. But if we stumble not in word, the same as a perfect man. Okay, we can't be perfect, but the thought I like to leave is if we can control our tongue, if our tongue is controlled, it means our heart is controlled, and it goes to show, it says it is also able to bridle the whole body. And I think that I just really like that thought, that if our mouth is controlled, it's saying that we are going to be a controlled person, really. And I think that's right. And it was just, I read that and it's like, that's a challenge to me, and that's a challenge I want to leave to you all, that let's just make sure everything that comes out of our mouth is something that God can be glorified and we won't someday regret. Does anyone have any announcements?